There have been a very broad spectrum of interpretations of Jesus. This slide will hopefully give you an idea of this diversity. On one side of this spectrum, we have the historical Jesus, what biblical scholars have discovered and tell us about the man who lived around 33 years. About a decade ago, there was a coming together of notable scholars under the banner of the Jesus Seminar. The aim of this seminar was to determine how much of what the New Testament Gospels state Jesus said was actually said by him. On the other side of the spectrum are a pretty vocal group of individuals who Bart Ehrman calls mythicists. They argue that the historical Jesus did not exist at all, that the person we call Jesus was a construction of mythemes that can be found in the radical pluralism that is Rome. But major scholars such as Ehrman, Marcus Borg, John Dominic Crossan do not believe the mythicists and have provided evidence that proves them wrong. Another thing you can see on this slide are the many ways that Jesus has been portrayed in art. We don't really know what Jesus looked like. We can figure, however, that he probably looked like a Jew would look in first century Palestine. Nonetheless, he has basically been betrayed to look like whatever culture is imaging him. There are images of Jesus that look Asian and African and of course European. Besides the many appearances of Jesus, there have been as many assertions as to his ideals. He's been a revolutionary, Che Guevara type figure, the Prince of Peace to the greatest businessman ever. I think in 1925, I was a kid then, Bruce Barton wrote a book called The Man That Nobody Knows, in which he argues this. A poor preaching carpenter gathers together some fishermen, which eventually leads to the world's largest religion. That's entrepreneurship. Didn't Jesus say, I am about my Father's business? Russell Conwell, around the same time, in the early 20th century, repeatedly gave a sermon called Acres of Diamonds that stressed that we all have acres of diamonds in our backyards that we need only search and dig for. These are precursors to what we know now as the prosperity gospel or the gospel of wealth. Closing out this slide, you might notice a bobblehead Jesus. Many years ago, before your grandparents were born, I was taking my first religious studies class. It was a course on Christianity in the Middle Ages. The professor was wonderful, and she used to say, "You get the God you need." She was, of course, referring to the human tendency to image and interpret God in ways that suit your particular worldview. And this has been done for Jesus for thousands of years.